It's the word dictating what comes out of your back pocket. Inflation. And today's latest consumer price index figures reveal it's now the highest it's been in 3 decades, which basically means what we already knew: everything's more expensive.
The average Kiwi household is going backwards.
The biggest drivers: housing and transport. The price of petrol's ballooned by 32% in the last year. Building a new home costs an extra 18%.
New Zealanders pay more for building materials in a similar way that we pay more for our groceries.
Speaking of groceries, we're paying 18% more for fruit and veg today than we were this time last year, and those growing them are also struggling. But grocers say they're not reaping the profits. Instead, demand has decreased. The cut to inflation is desperately needed.
You can see inflation in the third quarter was 2.2%. Over the course per annum, it's 7.2%. The expectation was only 6.6%, so it's a bit higher than what the market was predicting. Fruit and veg, 17%. Passenger transport, that's basically public transport costs, up about 18%. And property rates, that's rents, really up about 7.1%. So some big increases in costs in the New Zealand economy. Their cash rate's already at 3.5%.
Our inflation rate has hit its highest in a generation. It's gone from 6.9% in March to 7.3% in the June quarter, a 32-year high. So what's driving it? Well, construction costs are up, rents are rising, and we're all feeling the pain at the petrol pump and the supermarket checkout.
More Kiwis in this situation will have to seek help from Work and Income and food banks. This one in Christchurch experiencing a huge jump, and those needing a helping hand. Aotearoa hasn't faced inflation this high since 1990. Global and domestic factors are to blame, but skyrocketing construction costs are a big driver of homegrown inflation.
National would deal with the workforce shortages running at the heart of those problems. Labor has restricted immigration, it's choked the workforce, and that's creating extra costs.
New Zealand inflation has hit 7.3%. That's the highest rate since June 1990. Housing and household utilities were the top contributors to the inflation, up 2.3%. This was driven by higher rents for tenants. That's up 1.2% for the quarter. Transport costs, 2.3% up.
Good evening. If you've been feeling like your grocery bill is skyrocketing, you're not wrong. In the year to August, food prices increased by 8.3%, the largest jump in 13 years. Fruit and vegetables increased by a whopping 15%. Poultry and fish jumped by 7.6%. Prices from your pantry and fridge staples like cereals, snacks and dairy increased by 8.7%. And if you need comfort cookies, sorry, they're getting more expensive too.
It's official, the weekly shop is blowing the budget. According to Stats NZ, it's gone up 8.3% in the year to August. But it's not just tomatoes. In the last year, there's been an increase in price across all the broad food categories. In the last year, pantry and fridge staples such as dairy, cereals and pasta have increased by 8.7%, driven by the rising costs of eggs, yogurt and of course cheddar cheese. Fruit and vegetable prices went up 15%, with capsicums, potatoes and onions the worst offenders. And if it feels like your weekly shop is getting more expensive by the month, you'd be right about that too. From July to August, eggs went up 6.7% and yogurt up 4.7%. Getting food to supermarket shelves and then onto our plates is getting more expensive. Brad Olsen says the cost of food is an indicator of bigger problems in the wider economy. So for the time being at least, that's the way the very expensive cookie crumbles.
Good evening. Prices keep going up. Inflation has hit a 32-year high, with housing, food and fuel costs pushing the annual rate to 7.3%. That's up from 6.9% and higher than most economists expected. Now, ANZ is predicting the OCR will rise to 4% in November, and that'll drag mortgage rates up with it. Economists are also worried about the price rises spreading through more and more items. 66% of all items monitored increased in price in the June quarter.
The thing about quiche, custard tarts and eclairs is you can't make them without eggs, dairy and flour. And you can't deliver the treats without petrol. The price of the key elements of RO Bake, ingredients and petrol, painfully the key drivers of inflation. The government's record keeper, Stats NZ, today confirming what everyone's been feeling. Inflation is up 7.3%. Ouch. And it seems inflation is seemingly almost inescapable. Your debt will likely get more expensive because to stifle inflation, the Reserve Bank has one tool, the official cash rate. Economist Brad Olsen is predicting it will climb another 0.5%. ACT wants the Reserve Bank Governor to curb inflation, or else.
Adrian Orr has been asked to get inflation under control in the medium term. Well, he needs to be held accountable.
And National just wanting some accountability, full stop.
The government continues to throw up its hands, point at overseas factors and tell Kiwis they just need to put up with surging prices.